introductions, I hope. And I'm hoping we'll have a very intimate conversation. And I want you to feed our souls with first knowledge that you're putting over the years. So, could you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself?
There's so much pressure in the room. Huh? It's like too much expectation. I suggest we just have fun. This whole thing of let's learn, it just creates expectations you don't want to, if you don't meet them, at least if you leave, you'll say we had a good evening. My name is David Gonahasa. I have been building for a long time and I continue to build. I currently run a company called Tripesa. And what we do is, in a room like this, I'd explain it differently. We've taken from all the lessons we've learned that we were building for ourselves, and we're trying to make the whole market solve those problems without having to spend so much. So what we are is a software as a service for tourism and experiences. I'll explain eventually why that sector. We're like Shopify pretty much. Okay, so just take away the complexity of writing code, complexity of building systems, give it to a small business. Theoretically, it should succeed. And then, of course, figure out all the other things while you do that. So, and that's the easiest way. That's the best, most relevant way I can do the intro in this room.
Right. So could you give us a bit more insights into your background? How did you start out? How was it in 2003?
Not many of you are doing anything in 2003. So I, born, raised in Kampala, but very early on, I sort of asked, I think it was about 6 or 7 years. I remember this very vividly because it's something I remember. There were kids playing in the compound, and you look up in the sky and you see a plane flying, and you ask yourself, if someone can build that, why can't I? Right? And it was not. At that point as a child, when you dream, you don't care about limitations and whatever inhibitions you might have. For you, it's pretty much the stupidity and foolishness of a child, right? It's that, it's almost delusional to think I can build something like that. And fast forward to a few years later, my cousin and I had a conversation. This was 2002, I think. 2001 towards the end. So I got expelled from school and I was at home and my cousin comes over to visit and we begin to speak about websites. I mean, this was the time when a website in Uganda cost over $1,000. MTN was selling hosting. I mean, you guys are really enjoying yourselves now because you're going to get free AWS credits, you're going to get all these things. Web hosting in Uganda at the time was $100 for 100 MB, right? So my cousin lives in Sweden and he comes and says, I was expelled, so I'm at home really doing nothing. I guess my dad wanted to chase me from the house every day. And he says, we can get someone to sell us hosting from Sweden for, I think, $10 or something like that a month, so $100 a year. So we decided to start this company, and what we were doing was we were selling web hosting for $30, and we're building websites for about maybe $500. And we made money. We actually did make some money. The problem is, I was so immature, so experienced, so stupid, and had no clue what money meant. So when you make money, as a 19-year-old kid, what do? You eat the money. So we did that with a couple. I mean, there's some clients we worked with in 2003. And then I think the most fundamental moment was when I walked into a room to build a website for, he was called Mr. Boni Katatumba. So I walked into this guy's shop. So he was a really, really rich guy. And he had a cough, like a really bad cough, like blah, blah, blah. So I'm sitting there, walk into this guy's room, 19 years old. So I faced all the rejection from, receptionists and secretaries. I look at a 19-year-old kid now, and I think I look like that. I would never let myself into any of the rooms. I mean, like 19 years, what are you doing? But somehow I got into the rooms. And this guy is coughing so badly. And I remember thinking to myself, if this man can do it and make all this, I think I also can. Right? And at that point, one of the biggest challenges I think that we have as human beings is assuming that we cannot. realizing or thinking that our environment will limit us from achieving what we want. The truth is that, in my opinion, life is limitless. Right? You just have to have a little bit of delusion in your mind to have the confidence to try for these things. So anyway, we built. After that, we built marketuganda.com. So what we realized was that since not many people would afford the website, so now I'm 20 years old. I've gone to university. This is 2004. So we built this website called marketuganda.com because since they can't afford websites, we'll put them on a directory and we'll charge them $43,000 for a profile. And we made money. I mean, you're 20 years old and you're making easily 43. This is 2003. You're making 43,000 almost every day. And I was on campus in Lumumba Hall. I'd, borrow suits every once in a while to go for meetings, and that was fun.
To get a bit of context, I usually compare prices to a chapati. So you see how a chapati is 1,000 now? How much was it then?
200. Yeah. 200. The border from Wandegea to campus was, I think, 500 shillings. Don't ask me about the price of beer. we still made random punches in the room. But so we built this business, and then we got an office in Wandegea. So all my friends come to the office and hang around the office. In fact, there's many of my peers whose CVs still have Media Flower on it because that was the company we had then. Because you had to show that you worked somewhere. So they'd come and use my company name and go in and get that. So Market Uganda was this web directory for Ugandan businesses. 43,000 shillings, and we kept making it. The problem is that you'd have to go collect the money from one place and the other. So we should have figured out that we should have built a payment system then. We never thought about that. So that was, I think that's the, if you ask me what do you regret, I regret that. Not realizing that in 2004, people needed payments and we didn't realize it. So we would use, taxis and borders, go around, collect money from all over the place. And then the funniest thing happened. So a Japanese company, so at the time, people were trying to come into the country. So you sort of realize how when you start a business, you have a particular end in sight. So in your mind, you're thinking, I'm building legal tech services, but you find that what you're doing can be a great way to, say, drive education or legal education or something like that. So it's what we did. So we were doing this this marketplace, and Japanese company reaches out and says, we want to start selling cars to Uganda. This was before Japanese vehicles had come, and this was still when the individual guys, sometimes I think I should have been really, really rich by now. Anyway, so these guys come to us and tell us, we want to sell cars in Uganda. Can you help us? This is 2004, 2005, so I'm 21 years old. And these guys come and say, we're coming to your country. Our head of strategy and head of something is going to fly to Uganda to meet you. Okay, so what actually happened, I tell them, we can help you, let's do a feasibility study. I had no clue what this nonsense was. But I was reading a book. So what I did, I should say this, that's not a right statement. So what I've had the opportunity, or I have this ability to immerse myself into something I take interest in and really learn about it. So I read so much about marketing and I understood the processes, the 5 Ps, how to do all this kind of stuff. So so this guy said, I want to come to Uganda. I'm like, let's do a study, understand the opportunity, and we can help you build a strategy to enter the Ugandan market. 21 years old. These guys come in, they say, we'll meet you at Hotel Africana. Now, when they say that when we come, we'd like to come to your office and see your team. I'm in Lumumba Hall. I have no money. So I call my dad, rest his soul. I call my dad and I say, Dad, I need an office and a car. So he says, for what? So, 21 years old telling your parents that you have a business was, okay, in 2004, they're like, you're being dumb. But then somehow we pushed. We'd open up an office. We were pushing and those activities they were seeing. So my dad says, yeah, sure thing. I'll get you a car. So he calls one of my aunties. They give me a car with a driver. It's a Prado. I borrow a suit from a friend of mine. So I'm in a suit. But remember, think about what a 21-year-old kid looks like in Uganda. He's been eating cassava and maize every day, so tiny. So we're going to this meeting with these guys, and the knowledge. I think the key lesson here is if you want to do anything, try as much as possible to immerse yourself enough to understand all the knowledge around what you're doing. And I talked to these guys about the automobile market and how there's a huge opportunity and how the bonds right now are buying their cars at a lot of money from Japan. They rely on third parties and it's very expensive, etc. etc. So this guy said, cool, good, great conversation. We'd like to see your office now. So I called my uncle had been called. So we drive up to my uncle's office and he had this really huge seat. I couldn't even fit in it. I stood on the side. Long story short, we got $1,800 from this Japanese company in 2004. So I'm a 21-year-old kid. I made $1,800. We did the research, gave the report, and I just didn't see the opportunity. So that's a failure because many times opportunity comes right in front of you, and because you're so focused on the different thing, you forget what's right there. Because what we should have done at that point was, okay, yes, we're building this online business, but what people are asking us for is they're saying, we want you to help us enter the Ugandan market. And we never saw it. We didn't listen to our customers. They were screaming, do this for us, do this for us. But we're so fixated on, yeah, we have this nice site. We make $43,000 every other day. We can afford a couple of beers. We now have $1,800 in the bank. I'm employing a bunch of people. Anyway, at that point, we opened our first office, and yeah, it goes great until they stole our computers, and then the business just died.
Was it an inside job?
To this day, I believe it was an inside job because, yeah, I think it was an inside job. But I think the beauty of that experience was this. Again, it's the things you think limit your ability to build and grow probably don't exist. They exist in your head, okay? And in the fears around you of, oh, I can't do this, or I can't do that, or I'll struggle, whatever it is. As a child, 21 years old, did not care, had no inhibitions, had no costs, had no responsibility. I just said, I'll do it. And we realized that we could actually build and create value. I mean, I'll tell you, we got a bunch of contracts because we were doing, by the time, so they installed those computers in 2006. This was my last year at university. Of course, my university was struggling at the time. But by that time when they installed the computers, we had done stuff for, I think, NEC. We had done millions of shillings in transactions at that age. We just did not have the maturity and mentorship to be able to turn that into a sustainable business venture. So, yeah, it was more of a great time than it was a serious time, but good learning experience.
Okay, so let's dig into the other. So I see a few recurring characters. So the ability to immerse yourself into the information that's needed to execute, then putting yourself forward when you have an opportunity. So I want to understand your current principles right now and how you're going to establish them. Like for Brian at Tugayo, his to execute his vision. So he sells his vision so that his team like resonates with the vision and like they work towards that. And they also have values of love and work. Yeah. So would you say you have like some other underlying principles that you?
So I'm not as sophisticated in communicating these things, right? If you ask anyone who works with me, I think I've slowly learned to become a master delegator of tasks. I think it's important to understand your strengths and your weaknesses. So I am great at big picture. I'm the guy at the front of the army saying, let's go and fight. But I may be really crappy at fighting. So, for example, I'll tell you, I am the worst operator in the world. If you give me a business to run, to manage day to day, it will probably fail. Not because I can't, but because I have challenges with focusing on detail. Okay, so I look at the bigger picture and I focus on that, and I make sure you have the best people who are actually better than me to manage the detail and day-to-day operations of what happens. Do I try to create culture? Yes. I mean, the words of love and vision and all those things exist. I think for us, it's can we know where we want to end? Where do we want to take this? And I think what I sell to my team is here's what we want to achieve, and let's work towards it. I said we can find sophisticated ways to define this stuff, but I think eventually it's where do we want to end up? What do we want to do? And as leaders, it's very important for you to make sure that you and your team all understand where you want to end up. And trust me, It's never monetary, because money can only inspire people so much. There's only so much money, because you see, yes, you'll keep increasing salaries, but when you're building at the start, you need people who really buy into what it is you're doing. So if I go back to this story in 2003, 2004, we had a team of people who stuck with us. And as we speak about this more and more, you realize that as you build, it gets very tough. And it only takes the people who stand around to keep operations going. So we got our computers stolen. And I know this is a really old story, but computers get stolen. Some of the team, I think the guys who stole the computers left, but some people stayed. And when they stayed, before we shut down, somehow we're able to, again, this is a 22, 23-year-old kid. We're able to get to a point where we convinced Makerere University to take over publishing of their regular newspaper. We did a bunch of concerts, did a bunch of things, purely because the team said, we shall try to keep this going. As a founder, you only have so much energy, and I can tell you it does get depleted. And it's best not to do this alone. So do I have sophisticated terms for it? No, I don't. I just think have a common vision and a common end in sight, and make sure your team really understands that. And passion is normally built by clarity. This is where we will end up. We're going to Mbara, great. What is in the way to Mbara doesn't matter, but we will get to Mbara. And hustle, 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 hustle.
So after your computers were stolen, what was the next?
Computers were stolen. Don't quote me on that. Computers were stolen. This was 2006. So I moved to Rwanda. It's another funny story. So I was talking to some friends online, and they say, chatting. There's this chat called Monitor Chat. I met some people in Rwanda randomly, just purely randomly, and we start talking. And then they were like, "Oh, come to Kigali." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So we jump on a bus, go to Kigali. I met a bunch of really fun people, and they said, one of the guys said, "You should come and work in Rwanda." And I said, "Yeah, it sounds like fun, I'll do it." And I moved to Kigali in 2007. So it took me a week to decide. Actually, I decided when I got there. So I moved to Rwanda for a year. I work in advertising. So the marketing background now helps. So I get into advertising, work in advertising. I made account director for a company called Creaction Ogilvy. And then I support a group for about a year. Great experience, great time. What that did for me was give me appreciation of structure, because before everything I did was very unstructured. So it taught me how to organize a company, how to work with people, work with teams properly, how to manage remuneration, taxes, all these things. I sort of learned that. And exactly 1 year later, I was done with Kigali. So I applied for a job, came to Uganda, worked with an agency called Mad Advertising. So advertising was always sort of like a backup plan for me. And if you realize, any of you who knows the companies we've built, there's a big focus on brand, because the advertising bit was very helpful. So I knew how to build brands. I knew how to work on brand communications and things like that. So yeah, there was a very period of job hopping. So I came back from Rwanda, came and worked for Mad Advertising for 3 months. But in those 3 months, we launched an ad campaign called Mega Bonus. I was handling the Worried Telecom launch account, so that was good fun. I also handled StanChat for some time. But what advertising did for me as well was a lot of, again, range, because we're working with multiple industries. I actually tell people, if you have the chance to work in advertising for some time, it's great, because it gives you a lot of sort of big picture type understanding of many industries. After that, so Mad 3 months, left Mad because my brother began a company called Strategic something. They were doing SIM card sales. Worked with him for a month, didn't make sense. I went back to advertising, worked with real marketing. I was there for 9 months. I got bored, began another startup called BPL. So we were trying to do sort of last mile delivery of internet bandwidth using electricity sockets. We failed to raise $13,000 or $16,000. 2008, 6 months, left that, went back to advertising. So I had there was always a place I'd go back to and call. Even today, I'm sure there's some guys that call and then give me a job in advertising. Went back to advertising. But that's a fairly interesting story because after the power company failed, I got headhunted by a guy. So I'm flat broke, but I had a nice apartment, which somehow I've been able to pay rent for. So I'd call guys over to run their Friday parties at my house. So I'd host a house party every Friday, so people would come to my house. So I'd meet people and I'd have fun as well. And I met the most interesting people. So these guys come over and offer me a job. I think they're paying me $200,000 a week for still ad agency, but also it was a IT services company. And that was also a very fundamental point in my life because I began to work with new technology, so doing video conferencing. But the owner of the company let me handle the business development. So I'm talking to all these global companies about, point-to-point Wi-Fi networks. This is when lease lines are very expensive. So you're coming in with innovative solutions to solve problems of different companies. And I think that was very fundamental in what happened after that. So I did that for 1 year. Then I got headhunted. This was the most fun thing in my life. I tell you, pray that you get headhunted once by a serious company. It's a beautiful experience. So these guys give me a call. So they'd come to our office to negotiate something. And I was the hardest negotiator. So a guy calls me and says, "We'd like to meet you, David." And they show up in a 2011 Land Cruiser in 2011. I mean, you live in Nalia, life is stuff. It's fun. They pick you up, take you to a place, they're like, "Oh, so, we want to work with you. You're 27 years old. We want to work with you. We think that you can help us drive this company into the market. We'll pay you so much money." It was great. So at that point, I joined a company called Mobicash, which became Mcash in Uganda. It still is active. And I was given an empty room and I was told, make this company work. Right. So from product development to marketing and brand to route to market, everything, strategy. I wrote a paper for Bank of Uganda. So I'm a 27-year-old kid and I get this kind of exposure, which was great. But the better thing about it was that I quit that job about 17 months later. And you'll ask about the quitting. For me, it was pretty much, I was getting experience. At that age, I knew the best I can get from this job is experience. I was not trying to build a bigger house or whatever it is. I just always knew that I would be in a place when it's done, it's done. In fact, many of my peers would have a bet on when I'd leave the next job. Okay. But when I quit, the global CEO says, come in and work for me at Africa level. I'll pay you so much money, you can stay at your house. When I call you, go wherever you want to go to. So I began to hop around Africa. So you do 5 countries in 8 days or 10 days across the African continent. But what I learned from this man was the borderless nature of Africa. Because this guy would wake up in the morning, go to a market, pitch, open up a new market, and set it up very easily. He built networks in these markets. One of the limitations we have as Ugandan entrepreneurs is we're afraid to venture out of these borders. So you build a great business, it works very well, but you're so scared of scale. And I can name very many companies and I know them. You're scared about, will I be accepted? And it goes back to our fear of failure. You're scared about, will I be accepted? Worry about, will they buy my product? When you go to conferences with Ugandan entrepreneurs, many times you see them cocoon in a corner and hang out with themselves, except Geoffrey. For those of you who know Geoffrey, he's all over everyone's face. You need to have the confidence to speak to people. You know why? Because what you have is of value. You've built it, it works, it makes sense. I mean, the worst they will say is no, the worst they will say is we won't work with you. So that particular job is what sort of opened my mind at the ability or the possibility of opening up new markets. Today, I'll wake up in the morning and go anywhere and I won't care about what will you say. And that's a very fundamental thing about building, especially tech businesses. So after Mobicash, I think at the time I was 28, I think. And at that point I said I was done with being employed. I decided that it's time to try again. And I decided to start Roundhope in 2000. 2013, 2013 is when I started. It's 28 and something. So it was when I began Roundbob as a company.
Okay, so how did you come up with TriPesa?
So TriPesa comes in much later. So it began as, so Roundbob was this, when I was in the payments company, there's two things we learned. One was that if you help people afford to pay for something that they want, theoretically they will purchase it. And this is the basis for hire purchase businesses, the basis for buy now, pay later, save now, pay later, and those concepts coming up. You say you're in real estate, one of your biggest problems is affordability. How do you innovate around the ability for people to afford? And yes, there's mortgages and loans, but there must be smarter ways for people with smaller money who won't get bank approvals to be able to afford that. So figuring out that is something important. So we start Roundbob 2013. So Roundbob was a company that was supposed to help people afford to travel. I mean, to this day, we still really want to travel. And the problem is information and cost. So the information bit is, let's be honest, yes, there's a lot of information targeted to the global audiences, but to the local market, it's not that much. It slowly is coming out. Companies like Tuboy are doing a great job, and a few other companies, and I think there's Radar. Then there was the cost problem. So we built a travel wallet in 2013 and sort of multi-vendor marketplace of sorts. So you'd find a lot of information, find inspiration, and then save up for your travel. We built a great brand. I mean, Roundbob is a fun story. I actually think Roundbob should be a case study on hacking marketing, because we drew a cartoon of this fat guy. So the first thing is, why was the company called Roundbob? So I'm sitting in an office somewhere, and I'm thinking, what's the name of this thing? Oh, okay, that office, by the way, was supposed to be an incubator, which then I said, but I don't have enough experience in building to lead anyone as an incubator. So I said, let me try to build. If I make it successful, then I will build an incubator, which somehow never happened. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, name of the company, it's travel, round, the world is round, Roundtree. I checked, it would have been called Roundtree, but roundtree.com was taken. And I say round, Michael, James, John, Bob, Roundbob, had a ring to it, checked online, domain was available, bought the domain. That's how the company name came up. Then I called my friend Jonah and I asked Jonah, can you draw out what this guy could look like? And he draws this fat character. And from there on, we had the logo and we had the name. So we launched the company with nothing. We just launched the company. So at that time, I had some money. So had some money, sold some land, pulled some cash in, put a big team together. We began to build. I found these guys off campus. They were developers. We built our first version in about 3 months. We launched Roundbob. A week later, we get, I think it was about a $10,000 deal from Airtel. And it was great. But here is the point. One, the team we had did not really know how to build tech. These guys had come off campus, and of course, because damn me thinking, oh, it's just a website, it works, right? It never worked. Never worked. It was a pile of crap the whole time. When we got the Airtel deal, it was like validation. But then I think a week later, there was the anti-gay bill in Uganda. We borrowed the money from a loan shark because Airtel was paying us off an LPO. So imagine, we began the company, 3 months later, $10,000. Great story. So we have this anti-gay bill, the shilling crashes, loan shark's interest goes up, the company paying us delays a little bit. We lost a lot of money in a very fast 3 months. And almost killed the company. I had so many staff. I made so many fundamental basic mistakes. We didn't take time to actually hustle it out to learn what it took to build the business. We didn't have the right team because we just thought, the hiring was very simple. I just got people, you're my friends, let's work together. I didn't think through that. That was a very big failure. So we failed in our first few months, and the failure was bad because now we're out of money for 3 months, out of money, out of anything. Very, very tough time. I went back, pitched to investors. I kept pitching and talking to people about the business. We raised $10,000. We raised, I think, $20,000 and restarted with a leaner team, smaller operation, and began to work. But I never got rid of the tech team. So I had poor quality. These guys are really great devs today, by the way. They've built some really big businesses. But I didn't realize that we're all learning. So if you're building a tech business, make sure that you have one, you understand what you're doing. Two, you have co-founding tech teams that understand what they're doing.
Okay, let's go into it. So my CEO at Legit had issues with hiring tech tech talent in Uganda, and I found that very many founders, the technical founders, complain about tech is in the country. So if you have to start a startup, no cash, yeah, and you can give us both perspectives with cash and with no cash. How would you go about acquiring tech talent?
So there's two things I learned about tech. The first thing is the architecture and logic of your system. Because many people can write code, not many people can actually design systems that make sense. So you'll find that there are devs who know how to do great backend stuff. So I'll tell you, very many young founders, they don't understand the backend, front-end distinction. There's a lot they don't understand. So the first thing I suggest you is if you're building a tech business, make sure you have a co-founder who understands in the list, systems architecture and understands, tech stacks and how these work together. Because we never knew that and we paid so much for it. The next thing, so you're about if you have no money. If you have no money, find a co-founder who understands that stuff. What I also learned is that tech guys have so many friends and they can call their friends to help them write code from time to time. And they can also make it very modular. Break it down, build an MVP, go and test. If the market likes what you're building, and I think someone said it before, talk to customers, go and test, make sure someone is willing to buy it. And then you have to try to raise some money. I know people tell you, oh, you don't need money, hustle, hustle. It is painful to hustle, hustle, hustle. If you can, you have to go raise some money. If you have money, again, still find a tech co-founder, do all the systems architecture, could be a good product manager who understands tech stack. Design exactly what you want, and you can go to India and find guys to build a base product for you. Why am I saying go to India? Because you have a time cap to whatever it is you're doing. The more time you waste talking to inefficient, inexperienced people because they're your friends or you think they will help you, no one's going to help you. You're wasting your time. The fastest thing to do is move to build an MVP very quickly. Let the market tell you it works, because the market will tell you straight. So I was going to go Tripesa later, but maybe I can just give you an example now. We built Tripesa in the first version in about 2 months. In 2 months, COVID was the second lockdown. Before the second lockdown, we sent someone to Mombasa because he was in Mombasa during the lockdown. He goes out, he gets 150 people willing to pay for a product because they all started looking for options. But it was so crappy and so bad. It's only after we raised money, maybe a few months later, that we're able to say, you know what, let's rebuild the whole thing from scratch. So people is your most important asset. Not just people, but good people. If it's tech, make sure. There's investors who won't touch a company without a tech co-founder. And it's not because they don't want to, it's a bad idea. You will fail. The probability that you will fail is 1. So if you're building some system, some marketplace, something, and you have no tech co-founder in your bag or besides you, you will fail.
So let's dissect that a bit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So recently I've been watching a few YouTube videos of SaaS founders I've heard, and they were preaching low code, no code. Do you think you can work here?
Absolutely. So the thing about no code is that what's happening to technology now is it's changing from the complex process of building an architecture to, and I think it's a good point, because like Tripesa today, with Tripesa you can build a multi-vendor marketplace, and you can build a website that works, whatever it is. Okay, why does it make sense? So Tripesa has become your co-founder, because we are always building. So those low-code platforms, SaaS platforms, they're doing what a co-founder would have done for you. They're figuring out what's changing, what's new, what should happen, and they keep feeding that into you. Because if you're selling, let's say you're doing an e-commerce based product, and someone tells you, let's build something from scratch, punch that person in the face. Because you don't need to. It's been done so well that you can just pick up something off the shelf and execute it. So depends on what level of tech you're building. If it's a complex system, if it's a simple basic platform, there's so many things. If it's been done before, use what's existing.
Okay, so let's backslide a bit. So you talked about hiring freelancers and teams abroad, or any kind of talent that
I didn't
is
say that. I
experienced?
said find the most efficient way to deliver your product in the shortest time possible. If it's people abroad, do that. If it's local teams, do that. Find the most efficient way. Don't do it emotionally. Don't keep pushing how much time you have to get stuff done.
Okay, so having got this team, so yesterday I had a conversation with one of the founders in startup. So she had one problem with developers. So she went with someone, go through the interview process, vet this person, realize they can do stuff. But there's always a problem of communication. So how do you foster a culture of communication, or how do you like?
Is this person a developer themselves? Are they a techie?
No, they're not.
That's the biggest problem in the world. If you went to try to speak French and you're an English speaking person, they won't understand you. I think techies are strange. I think techies are creatives. Creatives are generally very different. Now, this does not happen in technology, it happens in advertising. The biggest fights in advertising are between client service and creative because they just do things their way. Okay? The hardest thing to do is being a non-tech person communicating with tech people. You can learn how to do it, okay? Because techies communicate with logic. Everything makes sense. I will give it to you on this day because of A, B, C, D, E, and here's how I'm going to do it. That's why companies hire DevOps people and you have product managers who have the competencies to be able to communicate with tech people. Now, as a founder, and why I'm telling you to make sure you have a co-founder who has tech knowledge, is because they know what they're doing. So like in the company I run today, there's a guy called Thomas. Thomas is a co-founder, he's a product manager, he's a techie who was working with his colleague in a dev company that we fused together to build Traversa. I never talk to Raymond because Raymond is strange. When I tell Raymond anything, he'll tell me he's going to be defensive immediately about it because he's protecting his work. When I tell Thomas, Thomas gets it. And they speak some language, and after a few days, they tell me it will be done on this day. But how do you solve all that stuff? Systems and processes. You need to have a clear roadmap. What are we building? Where do we want to get to on version 1? What is the time frame for us to get from this point to version 1? What are the inputs? What do you need? What are the expected outputs? When will they come? So you measure based on dates. But when you go and meet your friend Martin and say, yo, let's build something, great, let's build something. And it's, when are we getting it? Give me 3 weeks. How much money have you and Martin were friends, we're building together? Martin has 25 other things to do that are coming to him. These techies have demand, they have opportunity. So it's many times it's just prioritizing what they need to do. So if you can't speak their language, either learn, and by learn I mean learn. Let me tell you, how many of the people in the room are techies? 2, a couple of you guys. Now, for all the non-techies, how many times do you walk into a room and this guy is on a black screen with colored letters and you think he's doing my work? But he's not touching any of your stuff. So I learned something. I learned to read the file name on top of or many of these things, okay? Because there's a file name up there. Now, some of them change them. So I'd walk in and I look and I'm like, so what are we doing? Okay, so what are you doing now? And you sort of know that they're telling the story. And I'm not saying it's just about responsibility. It's about like how many things they take on. And it's not a bad thing. Techies need to survive. I'm sure you have your day job and you have 10 other things you're doing. Cannot 10, 12. And it just happens. And it happens in advertising. It happens in almost any space where you have creatives. It happens to writers, happens to almost anyone creative. Because when you get bored doing something, you want to try something else. So you're bored with this project, take another one for the fun of it, and now you have 3 or 4. So if you're a non-techie founder, make sure you have either a co-founder with competence or you have a team with competence supporting the process.
Okay, so you talked about an MVP, and I'm a big believer of having a very, very lean MVP. So I wanted to understand like the different types of MVPs that can fit for like a SaaS company. So I've seen some people do like a product video with the sign up form. Then I've seen some people have like a form. Now, like for instance, for our MVP for the JIT, instead of building out the whole system at once, because we spent so much time trying to build before I came on board. Then when I came on board, we just decided to have a form where people can submit information, and then we do the things manually as we build continuously. So my question is, are there any other types of MVPs or different ways I can execute an MVP or something like that?
So your choice of, it's the first time I've had a question like that. Also, it's just a problem when you have a techie asking questions. The choice of MVP goes back to what is the desired outcome. I think every action should be based on a planned outcome or a planned result. So in this case, what you want is you want customers to tell you if they like your product or they don't. That's what you're measuring. How many customers are willing to tell us, to give us information, willing to pay for a service, how many are actually paying for it. That's why you do a minimum viable product. So if you're going to make fruit juice, bottled, there's a story I like of a guy who he sells lots of fruit juice in Kampala now. And what he did was he went and made juice in his house, poured it in bottles with a sigiri, with a stove, poured it in bottles, takes it, people taste it, they say they like it, willing to pay for it, and at that point he says, let's start moving. So in technology, the easier it is to validate desire for your product, do it. So it could be a form. So yes, you do a simple form and tell people we are selling legal services. Would you want to buy? Say yes or no. That's it, simple. It could be build a basic version of the product that actually works, especially if you have technology capacity. So you can build something simple, take it out. So what Tripesa did was we had one template, you could upload 6 packages, we would do your domain name manually and set you up. You had basic inquiries, no payments on the back end. Very simple, very basic, built in a few weeks. We took it out and we got validation. So what I'm trying to say is, do not think about how complex or less complex to make it. Just think about how do I achieve my desired end, which is how do I get customers to tell me if they like my product or not. Unfortunately, for many of us, is that, especially non-tech founders, it's a lot harder to do that because there's a lot of stuff you need to understand from the build perspective. What do you have to add, how to build it, how to test it out. So again, I go back to saying, have a tech co-founder and try to do it together.
Okay, so I think we can go back on the road track to try this.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Roundbob goes on for. So saying about the whole thing about the marketing hack was we quickly realized that we could use other people's properties to get visibility. What do I mean? We didn't have the marketing dollars, we didn't have the trust, but we had goodwill. So do you ever realize that when you see a logo next to MTN's logo, you think that company is big? Now if you want a hack, that's the best hack you can have today. So what we did was we realized we need to have big brand association. And how do we do that? We go and give away something that the market feels is big. So we would go to all the events in Kampala, all the events, and we would give away free packages. So what we do is we negotiate with the supplier, give us complimentary packages. We go to Blankets and Wine, we're giving away a fully pay expenses holiday to Dubai. We're paying nothing for it. So you have a flight and you have hotel. Now, when MTN has spent, let's say when a big brand has spent millions on sponsoring, say, Blankets and Wine, because a flight and hotel is something that sounds fancy, we're on the stage at the end of the event handing over the placard for this. So, and then when the press conference is happening, we're right next to the CEO of UBL or something, and we're also speaking about what we're doing. We did that so much that it was quite successful that people thought we were a very big brand. Then it got better because now we said, okay, why don't we do events, our own events? So we did this thing called Cocktails in the Wild, brought all the big, so I see people doing these things now. This is 2014, we're doing those national parks. We took 300 people to Lakeboro National Park for a big party. The whole point was get our brand to a point where it is believable. And Roundbob grew. I think Roundbob grew to, we're doing 1.4 billion a year in revenue year on year. But then we flatlined. We flatlined because the tech never worked. And also we realized that for me, it was becoming a very big elephant. So we had, 17 staff and we're getting more. We had one physical office, we're getting more offices. It was very difficult to run. But the worst part is we had so much fraud in the business. We had big business problems for a small business. And we began to really struggle. And it could go back to how we set our systems and processes. And I think as you're building a business, think seriously about systems and processes. So at some point, we had no Christmas, no New Year's Eve, no, like everyone is, you have issues, people are shouting at you on the phones, I'm stuck in Dubai, I'm stuck here, I'm stuck there. And it was never why we started doing this in the first place. We began this because we thought we would use our technology to develop the tourism and travel industry on the African continent. We barely managed to open a second market because you just have so much to deal with. When you leave this room, please call your friends who run travel agencies and share your love with them because they struggle. So we then decided to flip the business. So our theory was pretty much, we've struggled to build technology. We've struggled to make payments work. We've struggled to sort of make this whole thing work. But we realized we had more experience than the next guy. Roundbob was getting 25 leads a day. Very few businesses in this country in the tourism space get 25 leads a day. We'd optimized our marketing. We just made a few things work. We had a nice back office system that would show you sort of the leads and the why they didn't convert. We had lots of information.
Was this custom built?
Yeah, all custom built, all built internally. And we kept tinkering with it. We never gave it time to actually just run its course because we wanted very quick results. Another big mistake. So in 2019, I go for the Alibaba's eFounders Fellowship. And I learned from the team at Alibaba that, and this saying was very profound, that the biggest winner of them all is he who helps all the others win. And that's pretty much what SaaS does and marketplaces. You're helping other people actually be successful. So we thought, okay, why don't we turn our model around to give other operators tools to help them do well. Now, at that point, there were very many payments APIs. There are very many tools like that, but they're not sort of half-baked. So I'll give you a payments API and assume you know how to integrate it. Or I'll give you a back office management system that is decoupled from your front office website. It doesn't really work very well. And unfortunately, in tourism, these things must work together because there's so much reporting required. So we took our very deep domain expertise and understanding of the tourism sector, and we said, let's build something for the sector. Let's build something to help the small guy win. So we began the process of selling Roundbob, but we had so many issues. We had legal issues. We had so many issues there. And it's just business stuff. Let's be honest. How many of you run a business right now? How many of you have issues with your business?
You can see frustration.
So we decided to rebrand the business. So we turned Roundbob to Travel. We just let Roundbob rest. We always believe we'll pick it up again. Turn Roundbob Travel, we begin building Tripsio. And Tripsio was supposed to be that SaaS platform. And then I will never forget this. On the 17th of March 2021, I fly to Kenya. So I found a buyer for Travelway. They were supposed to give us $30,000 for the business. I was excited. I fly to Kenya for an investor meeting for Tripsio. And I get there, and when I'm there, the buyer is supposed to pay us, I think, 3-4 days later. And I fly back into Uganda, and that evening, our president announces the first lockdown. So 8 years of building Roundbob just literally went to waste. But I still had the team, so we began to rebuild Tripsio. But now you've lost the business, you're locked down, there's no cash available. So we began to build out Tripsio during the first lockdown. When they open up, we begin to go out and start testing it. The build process is very complicated as well because we don't have cash now. Our cash cow, which is the travel business, is shut down. We have no cash coming in. The team is disintegrating. A few guys are able to actually work, but we built it. We built it the hard way. Went to Mombasa, did our validation, and with that, so much happened. But what are the points to think about through all this? Okay, one, we realized that we're not solving the problem we set out to solve. Our problem was, how do we help more Africans travel? How do we help the tourism market grow? We failed. We failed to make that work. So we took a step back and said, let us try to rethink our approach. How do we actually make it grow? We decentralize marketplaces. Because technically Tripesa is a big marketplace, but there's very many sort of shops of their own that run the way they want to run. Normally, you have this thing of, I want to own the brand, I want to be a big Amazon, I want to be a big this, but we thought we don't want to be a big anything. We actually one of the biggest motivators was we did not want to speak to customers, to the end customer anymore, the one who complains about, I'm stuck in Dubai. It was pretty much, can we just give you all the tools? Autonomy. Today you have about 700 websites across East Africa that are on Tripesa, and no one even knows that we're doing it. Right? So we have all these small businesses that are running on Tripesa, and no one calls me to complain. I sleep well at night, and I have Christmas and Easter.
Yeah, a big level of the B2B space. Yeah, so I've been, there's something that you've been saying repeatedly, and that's putting systems in place. So, hypothetically speaking, if I had building like a leads management tool for businesses, how do I go about creating systems that will help me keep a structured?
So at a theory level, a business is there to solve a problem of customers. Customers pay the business, they create value, customers pay for the value created, and you then meet your financial obligations and you make a profit. Okay? You simply break down your business into all those places. How do we create value? I think you've all seen this business model canvas document. I love that document. I think it's used by people who don't understand it very many times, but I think it's a great document. How do you create value? You need to track that. So in our case, we create value through developers who we pay. Okay? So you need to make sure you know that at this point, I'm tracking how much I pay the developers. I know what outputs should be created. Okay? So the outputs, for example, are technology systems and how they should work. I need to get paid for this. We've done the integrations. You track the integrations. But at every value creating level, you're tracking output, you're tracking input. How much am I spending? How much am I making? How much time am I paying a developer? Sometimes hourly rates are good. And how do you do hourly rates? I see how much I'm negotiating with you for a month. I cut it down to almost every hour, every day. This is your as a leader, your calculation. So I know that if I've paid you this much money, how much money have I made from what I'm doing? So you'll know the productivity level of any of these people.
So do you have this in an Excel sheet?
You should create your own Excel. There's so many sheets out there, guys. Come on, you're building a business. You know your stuff. You need to track, go as granular as you can on the tracking. And if you can't do it yourself, find someone to help you do that. Human resources is one of the jobs that we as founders don't take seriously. When someone says, I'm hiring an HR person, you're like, for what? To pay salaries? No, actually, HR is a very important role in the business because it helps you manage performance. One of the biggest challenges we have as startups is performance at the start and then managing money later on. Before you have money, you watch everything very critically because you're watching how much money do we have? Okay, no. When you make money, you begin to make stupid mistakes. Oh, we can't do it, it's fine, just do it. The human resources role in the business actually helps you, first of all, understand your staffing needs, your human resource. And that's a big word, the resource word. The input, that helps you create the output. How many are they? What do you need from them? What's the competence level? What do they do for you? Now, you don't have to actually hire a full-time HR person, find a consultant to help you figure out those metrics. Then after that, you have the financial role. The person helps you watch and track your money, and there's systems for that. And then the commercial role. So there's the production, there's human resources manage production to a huge extent. And the commercial guys are also managed the same way. It's all really performance. So your systems should be able to help you very well track your inputs and your outputs as granular as possible. No way you're making mistakes, no way you're losing money. Because you don't know, I've made this mistake. I hire people, and I've been kicked out of hiring in my company. Because I hire subjectively. I meet you, I'm like, you're great, come, let's work together. My team has told me, don't bring anybody else to this business. because I have the problem. Hire objectively. Find people with experience, with ability, and if you can pay them, pay them.
Okay, so this one is a bit of a bad but it's more on my side. Are there any solutions or any problems we can solve for you as Shrepesa? As tech founders.
One, there are problems that very many companies have. From the operational side, recruitment is still a problem for many businesses. I like what the guys at Wape are doing. Financial management is a very big problem for very many small companies. And it's such a big solve. Can you hack it? Can you figure out how to create efficiency? From a B2B perspective, what people really want is efficiency. Give me a way to sell more. Give me a way to manage my money better. Give me a way to manage, this is a new one, give me a way to manage how I diversify my portfolios and create more passive income as a business. So there's so many ways you can actually look at it, but speak to founders. I would be lying to you to tell you solve this for me right now. For me right now, my biggest problem is how do I help my customers do better marketing? So I have so many customers and we're seeing churn right now because we fail to help them. They've built great websites, they have payments, they have systems, but they're failing to market their websites all over the world. So what we're doing now is, SEO and it's all manual. And yes, we've done some things in the template so they work. We find that the customers who are happy with us and are making money are the ones who are doing their own marketing. But it's an opportunity for us, okay?
So, what do you believe is the most critical factor that sets a startup apart as it's getting investment ready?
It's a good question. It's a very good question. I want to say something, and don't quote me on this. Early stage fundraising or early stage closes of investment are very, very rarely based on the quality of your startup. So this stuff they tell you, problem, solution, yada, 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 yeah, it's there. But the truth is, the first check you get is very normally going to be based on the intuition of your investor and if they like you or they don't. Because it's money that they're many times willing to lose. Now, that's if you're working with it. If you're going to a bank, of course, have a business plan and things. So let me tell you a story about how I raised money. The first institutional capital we got. So, one of the guys I used to work with, my previous business, tells me there's an investor coming to Kampala, you should meet him. And I meet this guy, and I see us make this mistake very many times. You see an investor, you run over, oh, so my name is so and so, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. He doesn't care. In fact, it's like badgering. You're like, why are you stressing? Because he's been hearing this so many times over and over again. And they're human beings, they want to create relationships. Because people with money don't want to lose their money. And many times, very early on, the more organized you are, the less I trust you. Let me tell you why. If you're very organized early on, there's a very good chance you're telling me lies. Because you have not figured it out. You agree with me, right? You've not. If you're, let's say, first 6 months, 1 year of building a business, you've not figured out stuff. Hockey curves don't impress anyone because you won't achieve it, okay? Anyway, so this guy tells me, I would like us to meet in Malindi with some investors. And I'm sitting there, didn't really have the cash, but I said, I'll go to Malindi. I showed him I was serious. Follow up. You've created a relationship, follow up, have these conversations. Went to Malindi, spoke to these guys, they're like, yeah, great, too early for us. Cool, bye. I came back, I had a meeting, I had a consulting thing I was doing in Benin. So I go to Benin, the guy says, I will come from Accra and we'll cross together and go to Nigeria to meet a bunch of investors, because now he's helping me find people. And by the way, that deal was, he was just supposed to open doors for me. So we go to Nigeria. It's fun, we actually had to do like a 2-hour boat ride on not a fancy boat ride. Imagine sitting on a canoe on Lake Victoria and they tell you we're going to somewhere for 2 hours away in Nigeria. So we get to Lagos, and this guy has organized meetings with 8 of some of the biggest investors. So Future Africa, Consonance, and it's so interesting because this guy had taken me to meet these guys. Future Africa, we met at 10 p.m. She's at 10 p.m. We have a conversation. The first 5 minutes said, I'm not going to invest, I'm not interested. Too small for me. So he said, so, but because we're with friends, so he sits there, we talk about all sorts of other things. Eventually he comes back to me and says, but what's special about your business? And then I go on and explain it again. And And before he left, he says, I will do 50K and I'll bring so and so to do another 50K. So it's $100,000. This is what? Maybe an hour and a half of conversation, but you've built a relationship. The next guy, coffee shop, I'll do 100K. The next guy. So focus, while you build your business, have clarity on the problem very clearly. What problem are you solving and how big is the problem? Those are the two things people really care about. How big the problem is, how big the market is. Then create a relationship. And the other thing is, don't ask for too much. Ask for what you need. I see many guys walk into the room and say, oh, I want $1 million. Because you watch Shark Tank or you watch whatever it is. Or it doesn't work like that. Okay? So build relationships. Subsequent funding rounds are based on structure, systems. You have very complex due diligence. I can tell you, there's an investor that came into our round of a 20-minute phone conversation. Never did DD with us. He just said, oh, these guys are investing, I'll also invest. 20 minutes. So, don't, on the 6th, so I do support the government with some work. On the 10th of November, there's going to be about 25 to 35 early stage investors, the biggest names in Africa coming into this country, the first time it's happening. Okay? And they'll be in Kololo. In fact, the lady in black in the middle there is the one handling it, so you should all look for her and ask her for that one. And you want to meet these people, but you want to meet them to create relationships, not to push.
Okay, so would you are you a fan of bootstrapping?
Absolutely.
Okay, so assuming a bootstrapping might be to be SaaS product. So I've realized the problem I'm solving for, went through that whole business model thing, and now I want to approach my first business. Yeah.
Your first investor, your first client.
My first client.
Okay.
How would I go about that? Like, look at it as the time. Look at it at the point of view of like your 21-year-old self.
Okay. I'm going to use a very bad example. And the ladies in the room, please do not judge me for this statement. Okay. So, don't judge me, okay? When a guy is in a bar, okay, and says a girl he really wants to speak to, what does he do? He walks over, says hello, and probably says, can I buy you a drink? Right? Because he's assuming that she's thirsty. What I'm trying to say is this: when you have a conversation with a customer, you're solving for the customer. I don't care what you build or what you're building. I care about what your product does for me. So if I walk to you the first time, and my first name is, oh yeah, so my name is, what's your name again?
Collins.
My name is Collins, and we've built this legal thing which will give you information. Great, good for you, Happy New Year. But if you come and tell me that, hi, my name is Collins, we are trying to understand the legal space and we would like to know, do you have any legal challenges currently? What are they? And I say, yeah, I'm paying so much to my lawyers. And I say, I can reduce your legal fees by 30%. I will ask you how. Because I will give you the information for all the basic legal services that you need. So when you're selling, sell a solution. Don't sell, yeah, we do this. Like, in Tripesa, what we do is we say, again, do you have a website? Yes, no. No, why? It's expensive. Oh, we can give it to you for very cheap. Or do you have a website? Yes. Do you accept bookings on your website? No. We can help you do it for so much cheaper. So it's always solving problems. Always.
Alright. So what are the gaps or areas of improvement do you perceive within the Ghana startup ecosystem?
Collaboration, skills. I don't not go into them. Collaboration, skills, finance. Because we don't work together. Everyone's building in silos. The hubs work as hubs, the founders work as founders independently. When one raises, they run the other side. They don't work together very much. There's not much money available. And don't lie to yourselves. People tell you there's money, it's not there. Even in the Western world, there's no money right now. I mean, Sandy is closing, Twiga Foods is struggling. The biggest startups are struggling. So what about you, the small venture in Uganda? So you need to really, really, really focus on your value proposition and deliver something very strong. Try to generate revenue as fast as you can, because that means that you will leave to the next day and probably be able to actually raise money. some of the best money to raise is debt. Debt is tough, but debt is cheap. It doesn't take your equity and it pushes you to be able to work. The last thing is skills. We do have a very big skills problem right now. We think we have developers, but do we have enough salespeople? Do we have enough, enough developers for the different products we want to build? Those are some of the things I think are really big challenges.
Okay, so you're in a niche market, right? So that's tourism. Are there any other markets you feel are not like tech hasn't penetrated yet?
When I was speaking to the founders lab about this conversation, it was about pivoting. Okay, and I think when you think about why we've pivoted around the same sector, is because we've learned about the sector very well, but also we're very passionate about the problem in the sector. We know that tourism and experiences, not tourism only, tourism experiences, the whole value chain, hotels, whatever. And what we realize is that we're able to solve the problems of market access and commercialization and revenue for many of the small businesses in that space. Okay, so TripIsa, you'll still see TripIsa doing an iteration of an app-based service that allows you to create like a one-off. Something happened to the sound. Like be able to create like a one-off event, or I think it's like a one-off event or like a group trip or something like that. Because we are solving for that industry. Now, can we speak into the other industries? I mean, there are problems everywhere. There's problems in healthcare, there's problems in construction, there's problems in real estate, there's problems everywhere. But you need to immerse yourself enough to actually appreciate those problems. But the most important thing also is how many people actually have the problem that you want to solve. Because yes, you may come up with and how many can afford to pay for the problem. Because all of us want a nice house, but can we afford the nice house? Okay, so you need to think through that part as well. So, and the other problems to solve, there are problems to solve every day. I think what a smart founder would do that doesn't want to struggle very much is maybe consider the current trendy areas of innovation. So I tell every starting founder out there, I'm like, look at climate change and sustainability right now. There's money being poured into that. This time it was fintech. Fintech is getting a bit boring now. I mean, there's so much fintech out there, embedded finance, like what TripIsa is doing. It's so funny how many conversations we're having now with investors. If we've come to a point, they say time and chance happen, something like that. It's come to a point because we're doing an embedded finance service, they're coming to us. But also, we've built so much and we've built so much synergy that it's easier for us to actually raise interest from investors and people like that. So, find sectors that you like and are passionate about and try to solve for them. I can't tell you what to do or not to do.
Okay, so I noticed you have a few other projects outside of TripIsa, but they're still in tourism, but you're experimenting with a lot of cutting edge technology, like blockchain and things like that. So how as a first time founder, how can I approach those technologies and use them to solve a problem here?
Learn. So, like the blockchain stuff, when my business died when Runbook died in 2001, I took a job with a very young company in Kenya just to go and learn about the crypto space. They're not paying me, they paid for my flights, getting a place to stay. And for 3 months I was in Kenya trying to launch a crypto project. I since left the project, but it gave me 3 months to learn a lot about the blockchain. Now, you might say, oh, maybe you're not married or anything like that, you have a responsibility. That's true. So I was able to do it at the time. But you're able to actually, if you choose to learn about things, there's so much information out there. Like, think about sustainability and the carbon markets. There's so much information. It's literally saying that because company X is putting more carbon into the atmosphere, they must buy carbon credits. Carbon credits are created by being able to sequester a ton of carbon, which is done by trees. How many of you have saw the boom of cook stoves in this market? People getting so much money to build cook stoves. Did you understand why? Exactly, right? Because what these guys were doing was, I give you $1 million to go and build cook stoves. I keep asking you, how many have you built? How many have you sold? How many have you built? I go to the carbon markets and I sell your carbon credits to the carbon markets. I make my money back, whether you lose my money or not, I don't care. Right? It's like where the Chinese are mining our sand. We don't spend enough time actually wondering, why is there a buzz in this space at the time? The carbon market is such a big opportunity for people if you understand how to do it. SaaS, software as a service, so many companies are struggling to achieve efficiency at a lower cost. Software as a service means that you're not going to spend so much money or invest so much money into productivity. It can come cheaper. So productivity, just find spaces that have challenges.
Okay, so what advice would you offer for someone that is coming to the startup space, like a new founder, outside of everything that you've told us?
It is very painful. Be very careful. Don't do it. I'm serious. And you might think I'm joking, but I'm serious. I think no one prepares you for the amount of pain that you might have to go through as you build. I mean, guys, I have been through so much pain and so much difficulty. And I'm not sitting here saying, oh, glorify the hustle. And no. Expect it to be painful, because during that hustle is where you begin to change. Is where you start to realize what you should do. Because, you can have the best support from startup. You can have the best financials being built for you. You can have the best website built for you. But there's the hustle. There's the challenges you don't foresee. I'll give you an example. In 2013, we signed a check for $100,000. The investor gave us $10,000. They disappeared. So you think you have money. You actually sign off stuff, but there's no investor. So you're dealing with, we have money, but we don't have it. How many people face that problem? Not many people. So there's challenges that may come up. You have problems with money. You're making so much money, and the tax person assumes you're making so much. You have fines and things like that. You need to be ready for the challenges that will come and find support systems to help you get through them. Whether it's places like Founders Lab, whether it's your spouse at home, whatever it is. Find support systems to walk this journey, because it's very hard to walk alone. I mean, for me, it was in my family, my church, things like that sort of got me through these processes, but it's extremely, extremely tough.
So besides that, what do you use to unwind?
Next question.
Right, I think that was it for my questions, and I think I'm going to move the questions to the audience. Right, so...
Are you going to take one by one, or are you going to take a couple?
What do you prefer?
I'm a bit slow, so... Okay, I'll try to write it down. You can take... You can take like three, like in threes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that session. How are you guys feeling? Come on, please, let's give them a very, very serious round of applause. We don't really always know what to expect, right? Because, we are not, yes, we have talked to these guys maybe, but we never know what to expect. And from my side, I can say that my expectations were, let's say they were here, right? And then what I've gotten is just above the roof, way above. So thank you very much. How many of you have the same, how many of you got something from this as much as I did? All right, that's very good. Thank you very much to our moderator, Collins, and thank you to Mr. David. We are really glad that you made the time and you were able to share. You guys remember when I was saying that when you get the chance to speak to founders, then you're going to listen to everything they're going to tell you. And the one thing I've noticed about startup founders compared to every other industry, like CEOs of, like traditional companies and stuff, is that the way startup founders actually give you information, it's quite different. Okay, like these guys are going to tell you everything. They're going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? But then usually the CEOs of the banks and all that, and then they're going to just give you juice, and then they'll tell you, things are like this, and then, because, since they usually don't want to spoil the reputation of the entity and things like that. But founders, on the other hand, they're going to give you everything the way you want it. And as a founder, I believe that's exactly what you actually need to know. Not someone just telling you that, hey, you know what, it's actually going to be a sweet ride. And then you get there, and then things knock you down from the get-go. You're going to get there and then you try to get a certain license. Let's say people are in fintech, right? And then you try to get a certain license, and then they are going to tell you, you know what? Let's say the process takes 6 months. This person told you maybe that they got, okay, they tell you how fast it was, right? But you see, for startup founders, it's going to tell you exactly. It's going to tell you, don't expect a joyride, because it's like you're not going to have.
Sorry, but also don't. Sorry to jump in what he's saying, and this is important. One of the biggest problems that we have is the barriers to entry, and these barriers normally put up by bigger companies that want to protect their staff. Don't quote me again, okay? This saying I love very much. It's don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. Okay? So start. When they come, you say, I'm sorry, but now all these companies we're working with, how do we fix it? So if you're building something and you're going to try to, big companies have the resources to put all these things in place. You know, you need to go to a feasibility study. Don't do feasibility. Go and try and fail. Let that market tell you we don't like your product, and then based on that begin to iterate and build.
Thank you very much.
But let's take the questions in as well. So,
what about, do you know no base something?
I don't know base.
You know, so are they trying to do the same thing? Because I read about them and I think they're into the same business and they're here.
No base does registration of companies.
Yeah.
We actually got our US company done with no base.
Oh, so they do.
So it's different, yeah.
Oh, okay. You talked about Sandy closing. They raised about $27 million like a year before they announced closure. What do we learn about such a startup? That spread wings to Nigeria, to South Africa, to wherever. And I think it's shocking to announce that they're closing shop or something.
Okay, so I think I'll take this first.
One more last.
Okay.
Pesa, you sound so comfortable. How much have you raised so far, and which markets have you captured?
So I'll start with the first one. When we announced our round, it said undisclosed for particular reasons. It will remain undisclosed. We raised enough to build to the point that we got to. We're doing another round now. Incidentally, we're doing a pre-seed bridge, and very interestingly, we actually have a term sheet from Uganda Development Bank. So the fact that we are looking locally is great, and we're quite proud of that. Which markets are we in? So we're in Uganda and Kenya. We're still validating. So Uganda for us is a market where we're validating the business to customer or business to business approach with small operators in the tourism space and experiences, while Kenya was a B2G approach. So governments need to pay people like us to help them achieve what you call mass digitization. So Kenya for us was validating that approach, and it's going pretty well. So we have a couple of interesting contracts that we've signed, some in the pipeline. But like any other startup, we do have our challenges. Sometimes it's very tough to actually run, but we keep building. I'll go from the last one up. Your next thing was about what we learned from Sandy. I know Mesh is my friend, and I feel very sad for him. You could have I think maybe Founders Lounge should begin doing this, where you have like post-mortem of companies that fail and understand why they fail. I have no right to speak about Sandy's challenges because I don't know what they are. I can't tell you why Sandy failed or what we learned from Sandy. But from what I see, many companies overspend very early because you're paying $5,000 salaries. The thing about VC is that you have to spend the money. And normally, sometimes VCs tell you hire this person, hire that person, or you're paying them too much. So a lot of time it's cost. Actually, most companies really fail because of cost. It's nothing else. You cannot raise the next round. Because Sandy was raising a $100 million round, and they failed to close it. Why are you raising money? Because you can't afford your bills. So you struggle. And Sandy is smart. Sometimes you need to throw in the towel before it gets very tough. Because imagine that you're dealing with 4 markets, you have 100 and something staff. You're going to have a lot of stress. So maybe he was smart to say, it's not working, let's sell it off. Just manage your costs as much as you possibly can as a business. Otherwise, you will struggle. About Nobase very quickly, I think they're a great company. Their portfolio with one of our core portfolio company, one of our investors' portfolio. I think one of the things that many of you need to do is also do a US registration. Now we don't like that very much, but why do a US registration? Because investors won't invest in limited liability companies in Africa. They'll invest in Delaware C Corps, which again, it's just how they work because of capital gains tax and incentives and things. So it helps you to understand that, and Nobase would be a great company to work with. I'm not advertising for them. I want to speak about your company. I think it's a great business. I think it's a great business because, to be honest with you, emergency car services are really, really, really required. So just keep pushing. I think it's great. About the pricing question, why did the companies that I started fail? The first company failed because they stole my computers. I was very young and very inexperienced, just did not know what I was doing. The next company failed because we failed to raise money for it. So we didn't even get to the point of pricing. Roundbob failed, not because of pricing. In fact, Roundbob had such brilliant margins. I think Roundbob was doing about 25-30% margins on sale. But we did have a problem with cost. So no matter how much money we made, our costs were so high and we failed to raise money. Now that's a management problem. So I take the blame for that as well, because either I should have leaned out stuff or I should have decided to focus on what was working and pause what was not working. But I did not do that, and we struggled as a result. So pricing on one part, something comes up later. Now Tripesa, incidentally, we're struggling with the pricing problem because our cost of customer acquisition is sort of higher than our first year customer revenue. But from a lifetime value perspective, we do make the money back. In fact, we make a lot more back. We make almost 5x or 8x our cost of acquisition. But the problem we have is that because we're not raising as much, we then do struggle from time to time with bridging in between. How do you price your product? Know your cost. Know your cost very well. And that means know your cost of goods sold, know your variable costs, and know whatever expenses you're on top of. Then on top of that, do your pricing. And it normally works with product-based sort of physical products, but with services, there's a cost of production. It's in the human resources, and you calculate that, and you take it to a point where you say, for me to break even, I need to sell 10 websites, I need to sell 10 subscriptions at this price. And this subscription costs me so much. So you need to really do some decent modeling, understand what it costs you to run your business. And normally, I can't tell you what margin works, so 50% on top, 100%, depending on what the market's willing to pay, if you're actually able to be viable. So I'm proud to say that I have not yet lost a business because of pricing, but I've lost one because of failing to manage cost. The other thing is, the next question was around marketing and how to start on branding. What is marketing? Marketing is a pull action. Okay. Again, I'm sorry to use the example about the bar again. When you walk into a public space, and you walk into let's say, I'll use the example of the bar again. Some people will outdress themselves because they want to be seen. Okay. And we can call it whatever it is. We can say that, yeah, I'm just being comfortable. People will outdress themselves because of that. So how do you get people to want to come to you? Now, marketing attracts customers to you. Sales goes to customers and converts. Normally what marketing does is it gets you leads at the top of your sales funnel. You know what the sales funnel is? There's different steps from when a customer takes interest in your product to when they buy. So the question you must ask yourself is, how many customers do I have at the top of my sales funnel? How many customers are interested in my business? How many leads do I have? Don't ask yourself how many people are buying my product. Ask yourself how many people are taking interest and just asking about your product. Because if you have lots of leads, you will convert. So I think with online businesses, you're about maybe between 4 and 12% conversion. So for 12%, to get 4 customers, 100 must know about your business. So for you to get 1,000 customers, how many hundreds of thousands must know about your business? And that then helps you determine what your marketing strategy is. So you're going digital. Now, there's another thing I like very much of recent, and it's a dynamic I'm learning more from our market, which is, as much as we try to ignore traditional media, a lot of our target audiences actually still believe in traditional media. Every time you drive down the street and see a big billboard, you'll be like, okay, That's interesting. So like Rocket Health. Rocket Health was there for a very long time. We all knew about Rocket Health, but we thought they were a small business. When they had billboards up, now, oh, okay, they're a big business. What do big businesses do? They work with other big businesses. So it's easier for you to actually have these conversations. If you have the budget, now we can talk about optimizing media and digital markets and things like that. I'm just giving you hacks that I am not. I told you before, if someone sees your logo next to MTN, they think you're big. If someone sees your billboard, and you know the big billboard at the golf club that's always taken for like a year? Just imagine if you had that billboard for 3 days. People will think you're big. Now, smart people will tell you don't waste money on billboards. And I'm telling you, don't waste money on billboards. But, you know what I mean, right? So, traditional, like one of my friends is doing a lending business. He said that they were doing a lot of digital marketing, Google ads and all these things. Then he said they went and did radio for 1 week. And they doubled the inquiries in 1 week. And one radio station, not even a big one, like a little radio station. So if you can try to get into some of those spaces, there's the big question also around, if I can't afford to do it, what can I do? The best way to get free marketing is association and public relations. PR is easy to acquire and it's free. Get people to write about your business, about the cool stuff that you're doing. You know, I just saw Mr. Anatoly at the back from Yunga. He won an award in essay and he wrote about what he was doing. And we know about him. I mean, I'd met him before, but after the award now I know him. Right? And there's another thing I want to say in this room. People like to judge and sort of say negative things about entrepreneurs who keep going to conferences. You've had this thing before, I'm sure, yeah? Now I'll say this. The people who are saying this are not in the hustle. They're outside. Do whatever you have to do to get whatever visibility you have to get. If you have to go to every conference, go for it. But find time to work, because you have to do your work. Okay? The people who say things about you are not living your life at all. They do not know the hustle you have to go through. If you can, go. If you can't go and get these awards, get them. Cheap awards, get them. Get whatever you can, just get it, because you need that equity. That's what helps you keep going to the next step. So if they call a conference, I mean, all of you guys don't know Geoffrey.
Yes.
You know why? Because that guy is the biggest hustler I know. I go to maybe 1 or 2 events a year, I'm going to find Geoffrey. I'm going to find Geoffrey working his way into every investor room, every investor meeting, everything. And that guy will be successful because he's putting in the hustle. You're never too big to speak to people. You're never too big. Your company never grows so big that you're like, nah, you guys go and do it. No, hustle. It's the name of the game. Lastly, he asked the question saying, how do developers find co-founders? Because talk about how founders can find developers. Again, it's a mix of what do you want to achieve, what do you need for what you want to achieve. If you're a great developer, find people who can complement what it is that you want. Because then you want a commercial person, you want salespeople. You don't want strategy people. You want salespeople. You know the difference, huh? If these guys come and speak nice English, like me, just saying nonsense, never going to the market to sell. Don't work with guys like that. Find people who are in the market, people who are pushing and talking to customers and selling to customers. There's a better chance for you to have success that way. I think I finished my first 5 questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the response. How many more can we take? How much time do we have? Okay, 17 more, right?
Let's go. It's Friday.
Thank you so much, David, right? I'm called Vincent Masco. I'm CEO and co-founder of Naxal Technologies. We're the developers of Clinic Plus software for medical facilities, full monitor, and post-green point of sales. You may have met it somewhere. They are all provided as SaaS. Now, I have a few things to really ask or share with you, and I probably think that after this we may even book some coffee or some tea with you and share more, because I have seen many things in common. One, I will start with something you hinted on, and I already had it on my paper. Would you consider price as a barrier to market or value proposition or both? Because, basically it's always a question which disturbs everyone else. I cut the price, I kept the price, or the value and all that. Two, most of us must have made this. What do you do, or have you experienced clients who don't pay? And what do you do? These days actually we usually say that customers are king, but these days people are saying that customers who pay are the kings. Then what would you have achieved without funding if you are bootstrapping? Because I'm coming from the background of bootstrapping. Basically, we have not been into funding, raising funding for some reasons here and there. And we have been here for the last 6 years. We have moved from a team of 1 to we are now around 27. And basically bootstrapping. So I'm trying to see if we had funding, probably we would be bigger and better. So I'm trying to find out if you had no funding, where would you be? Lastly, okay.
I'm so sorry. Let's give chance to also others. Yeah, we'll first handle those were 3, right?
Yeah. Okay. Should I take those quickly and then no? I can
let me add you 2 more.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rita from Pumzities. I am not a techie, but I'm glad that I came. My question is
I'm not a techie either.
I'm glad I took that. My question is on debt. You mentioned that debt is easier and compared to equity and having people to get into your business. But we also know that debt comes with collateral, debt comes with that usually it goes bad. What has been your experience with debt and what would be the advice you'd give to founders? Thank you.
Thank you, Rita from Pumzi.
Hello, I'm Davis, and my question is about pivoting.
Sorry, about?
Pivoting.
Yes.
You find that ideally you've been pivoting around the tourism sector, right? So I'm asking, as a founder myself, you find that most founders can have ideas in quite a number of sectors. And they might be running their startup in a particular sector, but they feel like they want to pivot to a different sector. How do they go about that? Or they should just stick to one sector? Thank you.
I think it's wrong when anyone tells you what to do. This is wrong. So I won't tell you what to do because I do not know what you should do. But from my experience, why we're able to build successful ventures in the tourism space is that we've spent so much time in that space. Like, I know tourism. We know the sector, we know the problems, we know how to fix them. So the pivots we make are sort of course correction to make us be able to deliver a better service. If I go from tourism to, retail services, I have no clue what they do. Yes, we could turn TripAdvisor technically into a Shopify for products, and people have been telling us to do that. But the product space is different. You need to figure out logistics, so many things to figure out that what we figured out we're good enough at. So it's easier for us to sort of pivot. It's vertical. This is vertical, sorry, it's not vertical, right? So we're still in the same space, but finding a new space to play. And there's a 10,000 hour rule. As we get more and more proficient, it's easier for us to get it right. When you move from one sector to the other, you have to then spend the time just learning that new sector, and it takes you time. And the one thing we don't have is time. So you would rather stay within the same. However, you may find that your service can work in different sectors. So for example, we got a call the other day and someone said, we have a South Africa connection. They're like, we are the South Africa Funeral Services Association, and we think TripAdvisor can work for us. You know what? It actually can, because it's a service-based business. Okay, so you can actually move, but it tries as possible to stay in the same space if you can. In the same sector, not same space. So you can pivot vertically, as opposed, if you have to, do what you have to do. To answer your question, staying in the same space helps you build proficiency that you can leverage to build even better products. The next thing about debt, I've had very bad experiences with debt. I almost lost my father's house once. I have struggled very much. Do not take on debt if you can't service the debt. Debt is supposed to help you increase productivity and your sales service the debt. Don't borrow money if you're assuming, maybe I'll be able to get this from somewhere, this will happen. If you can't service debt, go for equity options. There's also very many forms of debt. So debt is not only bank loans with collateral, you have overdrafts. Overdrafts help you with your day-to-day, and you should actually learn how to use those. You get bridge financing that's non-collateralized. There are many options out there for you to actually use. So I suggest that as founders, spend the time learning how debt works and look at the options available to you, because it can be a very, very good tool for you. The thing is, not fear it. It can be bad if you make mistakes. I once had a loan shark show up in my office with handcuffs, so I've seen it all. What would I have achieved without funding? So, many times, all of us have a little bit of funding when we start. It may not be VC funding, it may be our savings, it may be selling our property, it may be a bank loan. Very few people start by developing the first thing and actively selling it themselves. Those are very successful people. What would I have achieved without funding? Very little to nothing. But many of the companies I started, there really was no money, or I was self-funded, and we bootstrapped through the process. What does funding do for you? It's like fuel. When you have a good fund, you pour fuel on it, it gets so much bigger. But if you can't keep pouring the fuel, it gets smaller. So you need to find a way to keep finding the fuel, and the fuel is either going to be through sales or through external funding. And I must commend you, because what you're doing is amazing. In fact, more founders should be like you, because you're more resilient. You have revenue, you have staff that you can manage, and you can actually grow. The challenge is that the cost of your growth is so high that you normally will find that companies like yourselves sort of stay in one geographical region because they say it's difficult to be able to grow. And I'm sure you've had investment conversations, and the problem is that you're being valued based on your existing revenue. And it becomes a problem, because then you're dealing with private equity investors as opposed to venture capital. So what I'm trying to say is that it's important to look at how, if you wanted to raise money today, I'm sure for you it's easy. I'm sure you've raised some bank loans, you have revenue, you probably have some collateral. But if you now want to raise venture capital, it's normally easier to raise for one particular product. So you're okay for a private equity business, because then you have three verticals, they're quite sustainable, you have good revenue, so you're going to get probably a 10x multiple on your revenue in terms of valuation, and you can be able to raise money, but you won't like the valuation they'll give you. I'm sure you've had conversations and you don't like what they give you. So the other thing I'd say is, if you can pick one product out and say, this is the one we're going to go with, form another company with that one, and that could be your best product or your most unique product, and try to raise money based on that, you may be, if you want to, more successful. But why bring people into your business to tell you what to do when you're comfortable? That's a big question. I would not do it. I raise money because I don't have the money to pay for it myself, so I'm like, let me get your money to do it. And also, raising money is not success. Raising money is like buying ingredients to cook. You need to cook the food, or you'll still be hungry. How to deal with users who don't pay? Honestly, I'll tell you what, that's also a problem around systems, because if you're building SaaS products, what you want is to create prepaid systems. Of course, it comes down to what your pricing looks like, but eventually as a business, you must ask yourself, how many of my customers pay me regularly and how many don't? If more pay me, so I'll tell you, we have, right now as I speak, I think over $90,000 in receivables because of projects like that. You do a project, someone says, I want to do it this way, and it's just been lingering for 5-6 months. And because it's take, you keep going back and saying, please, you didn't give them an asset. So they tell you, you will pay you, there's no cost to you, and things like that. So I see where you're coming from, but what we're doing in our business now is we're putting in place, it's all prepaid. If you're buying anything, it's prepaid. Even the higher project types, what we did is the entry cost is high, and then we break down the cost per user so that you're paying a monthly subscription, and if you don't pay, it's off. And if it's valuable to you, you pay for it. And that's the thing about SaaS. The people who use it, the day it goes off, it's off. So think about that. The last question was barrier to market. What was the barrier to market question?
Would you consider price?
Yes, of course, price is a barrier to market. How big is the problem? Who has the problem? How big is the market? What is the problem? How big is the problem? Are they able to pay for it? If you have the best solution that no one can afford, I mean, we probably all want, what's a new Ferrari SUV? Prosilvo, something like that. beautiful car, but you can't afford it, so you just look at it. So yes, you need to know your market and be able to price for your market, or you'll price yourself out.
Cool. Thank you for the prompt responses. We're doing the last round of questions, 5 if you haven't asked. So I'm strictly counting. The last one will be from Don, the 4th one, the 3rd one. We have 3. Thank you. The 2nd one, and the last one from this gentleman. Yes.
Thank you, sir. I'm called Dodge Titus from the Technology. My question to you is, sir, what do you value? What do you value or look at when trying to find a partner in your service or organization?
You mean a co-founder, partner, spouse? Yeah. What?
Okay. My first question is about bootstrapping. I think I'm understanding it in a different point of view. So, what is bootstrapping? And lastly, question is about branding. Like, how important is it to create a brand that people relate to, like locally? Like, if you look at most startups and many companies, or if you hear the brand, it's like Tobayo, it's maybe you're something. Like, how important is that? Or can you create a brand and just get people to relate to it?
You mean localizing the name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Brian Gordon. Thanks, great piece. I'm working on a SaaS platform as well related to real estate, and I'm in the whiteboarding stage, still sort of figuring out the business plan. One of the things that I'm struggling with as it relates to the MVP is, I've been in the space, so I know the tool that I want to create, and I know why it's helpful. But I also know that in order for people to really understand what it is and appreciate it, and really conduct an MVP process where I can determine whether people will actually pay for it, I kind of have to build it out. They kind of need to see the whole thing. Like having like 1 or 2 of the features, I know what the feedback's going to be. It's like, this isn't good enough. So I sort of need to spend time and money to build something out to really be able to validate it. And so I'm struggling with how far do I go? How much do I spend to build it out? Or do I go a different route and not actually build out the platform for an MVP? Have a demo that actually isn't functional, or have a video that's not functional where people can actually see what I want to build and get their feedback. So that's sort of my general question. How should I think about the MVP if I have a SaaS platform, or if I want to develop a SaaS platform where it takes a lot of time and money to actually build it out?
Yeah, good evening once again. I have 2 questions. One is, how do you value companies? How is valuation done? Because we face challenges because we're able to make like $500,000 annually, and we have assets and stuff. So we thought our company maybe is valued at maybe $1 million something. But when investors come in, they slash that price, and I don't understand how they get to the figures. And secondly is, these guys come in and they want to change your model, because for them they are building to scale. So how long do people from what the model we have to what they are trying to implement in our business?
Okay. That's it.
I have a question. So, number 1 is on fundraising. You've raised quite some money.
Some.
A few hundreds of thousands of dollars across the different pivots that you have done. So you know a thing or two about raising. And you also now do some work with the Ministry of Science and Technology. And you drive a fancy car with government plates. So
you really have to.
So the question is, number one, what are you doing, or what have you done in your capacity now as a government employee who's been in the startup world to help startups raise funding and grow, and also based on your experience fundraising? And secondly, how are you balancing running a startup and answering to higher ups in the government space?
Perfect. I will keep that for the last question. I was taking them from the last one up, so I think I'll change this one because this is a very difficult question for me. What do you value while trying to find a partner? I think this is the same really across to solve the problems I have. So what are my problems? I can't write code. I am a really bad operator. So I make sure I find people who complement the problem areas that I have. But it takes a lot of self-awareness to do that. You need to know what your challenges are. Otherwise, you'll just get anyone because they seem great. So I know my challenges, and I try to find people that help fit those challenges that I have. Does that work for you as well? So know yourself, know your problems, and try to fit into those. The other thing you asked was around what is bootstrapping. It is the hustle. You know, you don't have money, and you have to wake up and work and hustle without external funding, and use sales to drive the business and keep growing. And it's the best way to grow a business. That's what bootstrapping is. It's what you call the hustle. That is bootstrapping. Why is it? How important is it to create a local brand and people to relate to it? So this is neither here or there, right? I have a friend who says the word Toulouse to say bye, and I don't know what it means, but it's something like that. So the thing about brand creation is it's heavily based on how it relates to the people that you're talking to, or the customers you want to be able to buy for, or to buy your product. The reason why you buy Colgate or Close Up or Shell, let's be honest, these words are very abstract and probably mean nothing, okay? But they've been built through consistent spend and investment in marketing. So while a local brand name is okay for quick association, you may struggle with scale and how you then take it out of the country, because maybe the people in Zimbabwe don't understand what Tuvayo is. So you have to spend time explaining what that is. Sometimes coming up with abstract brand names, I mean, think about a name like Skype. Okay. Yes, you can put the words together and try to explain what it means, but then it doesn't mean anything. Now, spending time building a brand from the ground up, if you use like an abstract name like Round, I mean, what was Round Bob? But Round Bob, I can proudly say, became probably the most visible travel brand in this market at some point, because we were spending heavily on marketing. So whatever you come up with, you have to spend heavily on marketing. I think find something catchy, simple, easy to remember. Many times they say the less syllables, the better. So as opposed to maybe 2-3 syllables would be great. Don't have a name like 20 or 10, 20 letters. Try to be as simple as possible. The next question, and again, that's because, like I said, because I'm actually a marketing professional, so I understand brand development and I can confidently speak about that. How to build a solution. Oh yeah, this is your question about how much did I build, how much did I build. So why do you build an MVP? You want customers to tell you if they actually want your product. Now, what you're saying is I want to spend time building it and take it out because I know the market, but guess what, that's what you know, not what they want. So how do you know what they want? You talk to them. I would suggest you spend more time talking to your customers before you start building. Share a few features of interest. Here's what we're going to do, here's what we're going to add. Does it make sense to you? Get that feedback. Build a fast version. So there's the complexity around building, but you can actually have a lighter version of it. And every product in the world has been built that way. When you seek perfection, normally you fail because it takes you too much time, and you build what you want, not what they want. Mm-hmm. So speak to them. You can literally go and create wireframes, or you can go and you get a designer, a web designer, to just design the pages and link them so you can walk through the process. There's no database at the back end. Just walk through the process, ask them, I want to do something like this, what do you think about that? That could cost you maybe $1,000, but you have a complete end-to-end like interfaces that show someone what they would go through. If you have enough people telling you yes, open a new site, put a waiting list, and say, we have so many people interested. In fact, if you went to investors and said, and I've seen this before, if you meet a good investor and say, I have 300 people willing to pay me 200,000 shillings every month for this product, I'm excited. And raise enough to be able to build it. Lastly, I think find a tech co-founder if you don't have one, because that will save you so much. In fact, you can have someone you work with to actually build it out, as opposed to it yourself. But believe me, don't start building. Because we have this thing, we just start building, we start. And then you get to a point and you realize we built so much tech with my previous business, and it all never worked. For 8 years we were building tech. We made all this money through offline activity. A few things worked, a lot of it never worked together. So yeah, be careful with that one. How do you do valuation? So there's many ways of valuation, right? The first thing I want to tell you is this: investors are business people. Most investors, especially inexperienced investors, want to take from you because they want you to work for them. Smart investors work for exit. In some cases, the less equity I take, the more valuation I'll get. I'll push you to a higher valuation. The next guy is bringing more money and I can get out on the third round. So that's why you hear people raising $10 million for 8%. Because this guy knows at 8%, that's 120 million valuation. So I give you a million. If I give you $1 million, so like we raised money before we began building anything on about a 2.5 million valuation. Right, so you can tell I didn't raise that much. But what that does for you is that I have that valuation. But subsequent rounds, we're trying to go up to a 10 or 15 million valuation. So we don't have $15 million in the bank, but we're able to push the valuation based on what the prospects of the business are. But remember, we're raising pre-money at a post-money valuation. So our valuation is not based on our sales or our revenue. It's based on the projected growth the company will have, and this is normally based on the investor's intuition, because they sometimes give you the valuation. You can base valuation on similar companies. So for example, you'll say that a company like EasyRide, and I love your business, I think it's a very good business. We just don't know it, I don't know why, but it's something that should really, really work. So someone's going to come in and say, there's a company like EasyRide, and I'm sure they're there all over the world and they're worth so much. So you can base on that. If you're making money like Darksoft's case, it's normally going to be based on sales, so you do a multiple of sales. So your total revenues that you make $1 million a year, someone gives you 5 or 10x multiple depending on the investor, and so your company is worth $5 million, so I'll invest at that rate. But it's a negotiation, huh? And also know your numbers, do your modeling very well, know your market, because people are able to argue based on demographics. So you can say, fine, today Darksoft is covering 100 schools, government has a new policy doing ABCDE, there's more kids coming into this school-going age, we will increase our per unit cost by so much. So a lot of it comes down to how well you know your numbers. But in your case, if you're making $500,000 in sales today, because you're not a cash-heavy business, I'm assuming you use breakdowns that are not yours, you just coordinate the process. Maybe you own your own parking yards or parking bays where the cars are parked or something like that. I don't think you actually need to worry so much about raising money. Also, don't raise money because everyone is raising money. Raise money because you need to raise money. Focus on sales, because your revenue may be much better than you actually getting. Let me tell you, brother. Because it's going to cause you stress you don't need. I have raised money. Every Monday at 3 p.m., I must be on an investor phone call. Every 3 months, I must create investor updates. Every year, I must have full annual returns, and then, annual reports, and then I have to have multiple investor conversations, just to tell them, here is where we are, all we are stuck, we need this, we need that. If you can have a self-sustaining business, diversify your portfolio if you want to just generate a lot more cash. Raise to scale if you need to scale. At this point, you don't need to raise $500,000. You need to raise $2 to $5 million to scale. Uganda is working well, So, and don't be confused. Sorry, let me say this. Don't quote me. Don't be impressed by so and so raised money, because half of them are struggling with this cash. It's too much pressure. It's too much stress. They come into your business, tell you what to do. You say they're telling you what to do. Of course, it's my money. You want my money? Do what I tell you to do. Simple as that. If you can avoid it, avoid it. You'll be surprised. You can diversify your portfolio and make all the money that you want. Also, there's other smarter ways to raise money aside from investors. You can, like I said, you can raise debt. If you make that kind of cash, you can get good debt into your business at lower rates and use that to be able to scale. The last question. Sorry. It was the question about the government stuff. I think we're coming to that one now. Yes. Oh yeah, investors do want scale because we want to make our money back. You're investing, you want to get your money. What have you done as a government person to raise funding? So here's how I got into the government. I was living my best life, and I got a letter appointing me to run something in the Ministry of Science and Technology. And I said no, and I was told that you don't say no to the president. And then they gave me the car, and I said okay. But here's the thing. Eventually, when I accepted, I negotiated that I could do it part-time and remote, and it was accepted. What I do is I'm trying to help government figure out how to support research and growth of innovations in using new technologies. So many of you fit into what we are doing. Now, we have had to, so in the past what government would do is that you have people get into government and they throw grants at their people. And unfortunately, I'll ask you this question. You've seen programs like NIST and all these other things. How many of those companies still exist? You know why? Because there was no fundamental ecosystem work. Now, I argued so much about these things. Now I've been told, okay, you come and do what you were saying. So what we're doing is trying to work heavily on figuring out the ecosystem level stuff. So we are narrowing it down. Last year we worked on hardware. Why hardware? Because there's one of the biggest challenges is companies building hardware struggle very much. You prototype in China, you have to go back and build in China, they take your IP, and many companies are struggling. So we're building a complete SMT contract manufacturing line here. So if you're building hardware, you can produce here. We're doing rapid prototyping. So if Nagsoft wants to do any IoT stuff, you can actually do it here. Rapid prototyping and hardware manufacturing with plastics casing. So you can go from idea to complete production here. We're putting a fund within the production facility so you get subsidies on production and you can get subsidies to your prototyping. So I'm not giving this money to an individual. We're setting up one is a consortium to do that, to be able to manage the process. The next thing we're doing, and I think Nagsoft, you like this very much, and not Israel, Nagsoft. One of the other problems is that government does not buy technology or software from Ugandan companies. A lot of it is imported. So we've decided, or we've pushed to create something called the MDA Tech Support Program. What this is we will fund government MDAs to purchase technology prototypes from local companies. That way, because they say they don't buy from me because it's not worked anywhere before. So we will fund the pilot as the STI Secretariat. And with that money, if you prove that it works, they're obligated to buy it from you. So that way we get more money staying in the market and more people buying stuff. The other thing we're doing is a very ambitious, so this is the moonshot idea that we're going with. I know when someone speaks about doing or making semiconductors in Uganda, you think you're stupid, especially because you've seen the costs of these industries. But then the input into the semiconductor space is called the silicon wafer. I should have brought it here. It's a little thin disc made of silicon. What is silicon? Sand. The reason why the Chinese take your sand every day is they're making glass, they're making solar cells, they're making wafers. So while we don't have the funding for the whole thing, we're trying to do a business case to produce silicon wafers and probably solar cells in Uganda. So if you see what we're doing is the work that we're trying to do is really focus on can we create ecosystem enabling. Now, the more important question about funding. So we did this thing called National Science Week last year. I was the chairperson of that. This year as well. And this year what we're doing will be bigger, but we are flying in between 25 and 40 of the biggest early stage investors in Africa. So you can speak to them. You can meet them and also understand why don't they invest in Uganda. So what we're doing is very, very ecosystem focused as opposed to my guy here. Go and make some money and give me some as well. We're trying to make sure that even after we leave, it will still work. And that you can be able to build something and actually make it work. How do I balance the two? I am struggling. So I had a 2-year appointment. I am still hoping that I will leave after 2 years to focus on my venture because I have a responsibility to my investors. But also it's been very flexible. I do what I need to do when I need to do it. And I have a great team that's working on both sides. So Tripesa right now we have about 14 staff, very, very experienced people, very much experienced in the ministry as well. We have a very good team that's doing a lot of the work. So mine is, can I lead and guide? I told you I'm a very bad operator. So I have great operators, and mine is to sort of lead the process. If that answers your question. And I think we're done. Thank you so much. Round of applause for that. Once again, please.